Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to my channel. Welcome to another video, and in keeping with the series that I started yesterday, I'm going to be diving into the next step in the 12 steps of any basic recovery program that utilizes the 12-step method. Right, so without further ado, let's get started. Step 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Alright, once again, this is the plural format because it's a collectivism, right? A collectivist mindset, right? It's people, individuals forming a group based around certain core principles that have worked for them. But ultimately, you're not taking these steps with anybody else. They're steps that you have to take yourself. Okay? So, for a little bit of clarity, I kind of put some things in parentheses. So, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves, or greater than myself. So I came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity, or unity, clarity, truth, love, freedom, whatever you want to refer to that as. So ultimately, step 2 relies on the belief in something greater than one's own ability, able to restore them to their right mind and their right way of thinking, the right way of living, correct, right, heart upright, something greater than oneself. Well, if we're talking about the aspect of this being the self, or this being the self, what would be greater? Something up here. Truth, insight, pure cosmic energy, the source itself. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, the sum of the parts is not greater than the constituent source of what made everything in the first place. But the principle behind this step is hope. Now, to backtrack a little bit, in step 1, we admitted that there was an issue that we, in that current frame of mind, were unable to deal with on our own. We were unable to manage it, and thus, because we were unable to solve that problem, we ended up with lives that became unmanageable and increased in their unmanageability. And so the first step relied on honesty, right? Well, really, we had to love ourselves enough to want to change, and that love bred truth, right? The truth about what was going on. And that is that there is an issue, right? And so from understanding and admitting that there was an issue to begin with, we were able to move forward, right? Because you can't really solve a problem unless you recognize that there's a problem. So moving on to step 2, we discover that there is hope. There is a way out of the mess that we are in. And the format of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous is kind of funny. Chapter 1, it talks about the story of Bill W., right? It's Bill's story. And then chapter 2 is there is a solution. And this is kind of that Hegelian dialectic, but it works for problem solving, right? And it can also work to creating problems too. That Hegelian dialectic, that is, problem, reaction, solution. It can compound problems or it can lead one to a solution. Now, step 2 being hope. So once you've taken that first step and admitted that there's a problem, step 2, like, there needs to be some sort of hope that the problem can be solved. Otherwise, what's the point of going forward? So if you don't have hope that there is a solution, then there's ultimately no point in going forward. Now, all you really need is just a little tiny bit of hope, right? You don't have to necessarily have everything defined in this moment in order to get the concept of step 2 or that hope, right? You don't have to understand exactly what that power greater than ourselves or oneself is. You don't have to understand that in its fullness. All it takes is a simple understanding that there is something greater than oneself out there, and a belief that that power in itself could restore one to sanity. You can make that power the sun. You could make that power the earth. You can make that power the spirit of truth or life, or, even a collectivist group, right? Because a collectivist group like Alcoholics Anonymous surely has developed a solution and maintained their sanity to the point where they're not plagued by what they call the disease of alcoholism. All right? So, you don't have to understand it all. You don't have to sit there and swallow all of it at once, right? The only thing that you could truly do perfectly at first is admit that there's an issue and that, your life has kind of turned sideways. So, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So all it takes is the recognition or belief that if there's a power greater than myself, then obviously that power can help me out of myself and my current frame of mind, right? To something better or even to something worse. But we're focusing on the sanity rather than the insanity. So restoring us to sanity, or restoring myself to sanity, there needs to be that modicum of hope that my situation can get better. And I've seen it over and over, in Alcoholics Anonymous, people that have gone through terrible situations in life, the loss of loved ones, the loss of their financial stability, their entire life just falling apart. It was when they admitted that there was a problem and then had a little bit of hope that their situation could improve, that things started to go in the correct direction, at least for what they're trying to do. So, sanity, unity, clarity, oneness, wholeness, right? That's what we're working towards here. And the second step towards that goal of sanity, and it is a lifelong process, because it's not like at the end of the 12 steps you're just all of a sudden perfectly sane. No, I look, I don't think anybody truly is, not in this world right now. I mean, maybe they are, maybe they're not. But to an extent, everybody's got issues. And nobody's perfect at applying these principles in every aspect of their life. So, it's about progress rather than perfection. But, once again, in order to move any further in that journey of 1,000 miles, one has to keep walking. Yes, the first step has been taken, and a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step, but that is just the beginning, right? So keep moving forward. Obviously, if you stop and you stagnate, then you're going to build up emotional gunk once again, right? Standing water builds up bacteria and debris, right? Water that's flowing will carry that gunk away, that debris and that bacteria away, so that way it doesn't multiply in the standing still water. In AA, we refer to that as complacency. Now, neutrality leads to death, right? Perfect neutrality, right? In terms of a car, right? The basic things are forward, right? Drive. The basic modes of movement are drive, neutral, reverse. Park is simply the same thing as neutral, right? But you got forward, backward, and neutral, where the car is running, but it's just going nowhere. So that's still going to put wear and tear on the vehicle, albeit less on the motor. It's still going to eat up your gasoline, your fuel, albeit not as much as driving, but at the same time, you aren't going anywhere. So it's important to understand that. Complacency still leads to the darkness. Just sitting there doing nothing and observing still leads to darkness, right? It's going to have to take action, right? And at the same time, discernment of knowing when to go forward and when to go backwards. So, important concepts to understand, right? If you're trying to move forward in life, you need hope that, your car is going to start up and it's going to move forward. If you're stuck in a sticky situation and you need that vehicle to be able to take you somewhere else, it's important to have hope. Because if you don't have hope that it's going to operate, then are you even going to try? And that's what it comes down to, is a plan of action. It's a program of action, but we'll get to that in later videos. But anyways, I hope you guys are getting something out of this. If so, great. If not, as they say in AA, keep coming back. It works if you work it. Anyways, later.